Menemani suara anak bangsa hanya di PBI Belanda Podcast.
Wah, emang ya Cid, kalau transfer uang dari Indo ke Belandanya manual dari bank ke bank tuh butuh waktu yang lama sama biaya transfer yang cukup banyak. Ribet banget ya.
Lah, lo masih manual gitu emangnya, Bir?
Iya, emang ada cara lain, Cid?
Hari gini kan udah ada Transfest.
Oh, transfer gimana tuh emangnya, Cid?
Iya, dengan lo pakai Transfest, buat kirim uang ke Belanda jadi cepat, aman, dan mudah. Uang udah bisa diterima sehari setelah hari transaksi pengiriman uang tersebut. Juga, biaya adminnya jauh lebih terjangkau. Cuma 74.000 buat setiap transaksinya loh.
Oh, wah ini solusi masalah gue yang selama ini gue cari sih.
Iya, langsung aja deh, Bir. Dan buat teman-teman podcast PPI Belanda yang lagi dengerin, untuk download aplikasi Transfest di App Store atau Play Store. Transfest juga nggak ada hidden fee yang dikenakan setelah lo ngelakuin transaksi. Plusnya lagi nih, kalau lo pakai kode referral PPI Belanda 898473, itu lo bakal dapet gratis biaya transaksi pertama kali. Transfest, cara paling mudah dan nyaman untuk kirim uang ke mancanegara.
ADHD, also called as Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, is one of the most common neurodevelopmental disorders, typically in childhood but could also last to adulthood. Approximately 1 in 20 kids worldwide is diagnosed with ADHD. Now, what are the types, signs, and symptoms? What are the risk factors and the main cause, especially from a genetic point of view? Moreover, we're also going to talk about OCD and some social contexts revolving neuroscience, such as neurodivergence and the progress of women in science. So, my name is Romilda Elizabeth. My last podcast was about imposter syndrome, and I'm very, very happy with the feedback that I've received from people that it kind of helped them to get through difficult situations, because that's my main purpose at that podcast. And if you haven't listened to that, maybe you can scroll through Podcast PPI Belanda, Spotify, to listen to it. But today, we have a special guest that I've been longing to talk to. Her name is Euginia Singgih. She holds a PhD of neurogenetic scientist, studying molecular mechanisms of ADHD. Welcome, Kak Eugenia. I've been longing to talk to you because kita sempat harus delay, guys, because waktu itu Kak Eugenia sempat sakit, dan I'm happy that she's feeling better now.
Yes, indeed. Well, it's not like what people maybe thought. It's not COVID, but yeah, I had a bit of a problem with my stomach at that time.
Aww.
Probably due to stress.
Is it regarding your defense for your thesis?
Well, the timing is a little bit too suspicious to say that it's not because of that. So
I get it.
let's say it's because of that.
I totally get it. By the way, guys, she just finished her defense for her thesis, which of course we're going to talk about later. And I'm very excited about that. But now let's get to know Kak Eugenia first. So I'm actually really curious about you and how you became a scientist and your progress through there. Could you let us know more a little bit about you?
Sure. So yes, I'm just like Romilda has said, I'm a doctor now, doctor of philosophy, not a medical doctor. So I did my PhD in Radboud University, Nijmegen, studying the molecular mechanism of ADHD. Before that, I studied life science at Han University of Applied Sciences, also in Nijmegen. So basically, I did all my educations in Nijmegen.
I'm actually curious, kan Kak Eugenia waktu kan sekarang udah jadi Doctor of Philosophy nih. Nah, when you were little, what did you actually want to be sih? Because I know that children typically would have cita-cita jadi doctors, astronaut, president. It always revolves around those three. Kalau Kak Eugenia gimana?
So my childhood dream, right? Yes. So, waktu kecil dulu, I have this. So my parents bought me this kind of chart, something like that is on that can be pasted on the wall. So some kind of poster for kids that says different type of professions. Well, in English and in Indonesian. And then I thought there are some professors. there are some jobs there actually, and then I thought like, this is very interesting. Like there are, I think, doctors and teachers, scientists, astronaut, this kind of jobs. And I thought that I think being teacher or being a scientist looks cool, or going to the space is also very cool, right? And then little that I know, actually, I really become a scientist right now. And also in my PhD, I also actually teach, I give lectures to bachelor and master students. So you can say that 2 of my childhood dreams are already realized. I don't know whether I would be able to be eligible as astronaut in the future, but yeah, one cannot stop dreaming, right?
Well, congratulations on becoming a scientist. It's
really, yes, I know that it is really it's very amazing. I mean, I think in Indonesia it's not a very popular field, I guess, but yeah, at least in the Netherlands, is one of the more countries that is more advanced in terms of neuroscience research.
Yeah, yes. Also in like Groningen, Nijmegen, those cities.
Exactly. I think the biggest hub is Nijmegen, where I did my PhD, especially Donders Institute. Then I think Amsterdam and Groningen.
Yes, exactly. Which is why I'm in Groningen now, guys. Anyways, but I think that's a very good idea, like putting charts for children so that children can know like different possibilities are out there. And it's not only those jobs that we typically see in like what we've been introduced to at school, because I think that it's important for children to know that there's like countless possibilities for jobs, and that they can always try to manage to find what they're actually interested in. So just like you know that you're interested in biology, and then you're going to become, and then you actually become a neurogenetic scientist now. And was there actually something special about the Netherlands? Because I know that Germany is also really good in terms of research development, for instance.
Well, to be honest, when I started, because I started my study in the Netherlands as soon as I graduated from high school. To be honest, at the time I was just like, I was quite confused where I'm going to go, and I was not interested to any of those majors that they offer in Indonesia. I think it's like, it's a bit boring and outdated. And then, so I got to know this, basically, NOVIC. I think it's what is NOVIC then? How you call it then? An organization for studying abroad. Dutch organization for studying abroad. Either the Dutch people who wants to go abroad, or people from other countries that wants to go to study in the Netherlands, I think. So because of that, I actually get to know the Netherlands, and then I found out that the program will be in English, so I didn't need to relearn another language compared to if I'm going to Germany or Taiwan, for example. And also the tuition fee is actually not as expensive as if you go to the US or Australia or the UK, or even
that's true.
Or even if you want to, if you want to study in a local university in Indonesia, at that time the tuition fee is almost the same. So my father said that let's try to go to the Netherlands.
I see. But you liked it, right? During like the experience of like staying there.
Yeah, I like it. I cherish my time staying there. Yeah.
That's really nice. And I was also wondering, because you took a PhD, and I am still in my first year of bachelor in biology in University of Groningen, and I have no clue if I should do a PhD. I would love to know what was the experience like, because it does take several years, and I'm sure it was like a pretty busy kind of life? And do you maybe find a work-life balance? Because I found that work-life balance, like being able to do sport and cooking, is very like vital for me and important. So how was the experience like for you on deciding to do the PhD and during the PhD itself?
Okay, so the decision itself doesn't really come so abruptly, so it's a bit of a gradual. So, I was I grew up in Indonesia where everybody's like, okay, you need to capailah, capailah ilmumu setinggi langit, something like that. So they always encourage like, yeah, if you can go study higher, you should go. A lot of people is just like, okay, I will do bachelor and then afterwards I will follow it up with a master and then with a PhD, something like that. Because I think a lot of people just don't have a clue. Just go straight ahead until the end. I think especially it is actually still, I can see it with a lot of people, not only Indonesians, but also some Dutch students. Still, I heard, like, for example, they just finished their bachelor and then still saying that, oh yeah, but I'm thinking of doing my master. Well, I see that, I think if you are doing your a master with your current experience or current level, you will have a very tough time, for example. So initially I have that phase as well that I want to just do go until the end, right? But I need to be realistic because, at the time my parents were supporting me, right? So it's not like at some point you are thinking like, why am I I cannot let my parents to do this all the until the end, right? So I need to be realistic. So I will just try to find something to do. So let's say that I don't want to continue my study. I just want to work. And then, in the Netherlands, or at least at Adhd University, it is necessary we need to do internship for 2 semesters in 2 different places. So I had some experience in working with a real team of researchers. And then I started to see the dynamics within the lab. And I started to identify myself as, or maybe not identify myself, but I see like the head of the group or the head of the research group is a career that I want. So, I suddenly think that, oh, this is the job that I want to do, to have one day. So I thought like, okay, how can I actually achieve that? And I found out that it's easier to do it if I have a PhD degree. So I thought like, okay, so maybe I should do this, a PhD. But to be able to do PhD, at the time I was just a bachelor student, so I first need to do master and then do the PhD. But master is too expensive. So I thought like, okay, let's just take it easy and start working. And then I started working as a research assistant. And apparently, because they like me so much, they think that I would serve to be a PhD student, and they offered me a position. And
wow.
After consideration, I accepted it. I mean, I had, of course, a rough time because I didn't do my master. So you can say that the first year, it's kind of like catching up with that level. But afterwards, I think it is nice. But you really need to, it's not for everyone. So I also see a lot of people breaking down because of PhD. I don't want to scare you, for sure.
I get it.
Yeah, but even the most competent PhD suffer some kind of stress-related problems towards the end. So, but it's really because finishing is really hard. It's not easy. So it's a lot of stress. But otherwise, I think otherwise it's also a good way to train you. And for me, it's like it's really painful. The process was very painful, but yeah, it's the same. It's like what people say that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So I
Totally,
survived.
yeah.
So, but also I thought like if I didn't do PhD and I was still at the research assistant position, I would not be able to grow myself. Actually, I grew so fast because I decided to become a PhD, and then suddenly expectation changed overnight. Let's say it like that. And suddenly you need to keep up with it. And then I started to make it up to be able to keep up with the demand for a PhD student, PhD candidate. Yeah. So I thought like it's there are plus and minus, and then it depends on which part you want to focus on. And yeah, you also ask about work-life balance, right? It's also for me it's a bit people always say that the being scientists or academic researchers usually means that you don't have a proper work-life balance, but that's not true, because there are tons of people who still have work-life balance and they are still good researcher. Maybe you can say that the person who is on top probably really has like crazy working hours, but there are also a lot of good researchers who also have good work-life balance. And it's not that if you have very crazy work-life balance, then you will be
I see.
successful. So,
Yeah. Okay, so from what I get is that it is probably not for everyone, but we gotta try and figure out if it's actually something that we would want to do, and depending on the working hours as well, if we were gonna be able to find a work-life balance, and also considering putting it into mind like our mental conditions, are we gonna be able to comprehend what we are facing during the PhD, right?
well, for me, like I think there are also some friends who told me like because they they already knew that they wanted to do PhD, but they actually got an offer, but they rejected it and then still did master. And I asked them like, okay, so what did you do for your master, right? Do you actually learn something new before you start your PhD? Because that's the most important, right? But they also say that, yeah, having a master is kind of buying you time also. Before if you really wants to become a PhD one day, or you want to pursue PhD, then master is really buying you time, because it's 2 years, right? And because I think if you also do it in the Netherlands, they will also ask you to do some internship, and the internship is mostly need to be done in a university laboratory, so academic laboratory. So you will start to realize how the dynamics of the group works, and what is the whether like that is the final moment to decide whether you want to do PhD or not.
I see. So we talked about PhDs. So during the PhD, you were researching about ADHD, which is something that we're gonna move into right now. We're gonna move deeper into ADHD. And could you tell us about your thesis and like what the title was, and could you explain the setup of the experiment, for instance?
Okay. So yes, well, the title of my thesis is quite long. I will just read it for you because I cannot remember it by heart. So the title is Biological Insights into Candidate Genes for ADHD and Related Neurodevelopmental Disorders, Lessons Learned from Drosophila. Well, in short, I'm just really going to summarize it in a semi-layman term, because so I'm studying. So the topic is ADHD and related neurodevelopmental disorders. In this case, is intellectual disability, autism, and schizophrenia. And those disorders have it's also they are hereditary. They can be so basically if one of your family members is having this disorder, then you have bigger chance to also have it. And then there are a lot of studies that already uncover these genes. Well, we call it candidate genes because they basically found some correlations. Well, correlation doesn't mean causation. So this is also what I'm trying to do to find out whether this is there is also a causation or not. And then I use Drosophila. Drosophila melanogaster is fruit flies. And yeah, they are nice animals to work with actually. And well, they are also special because in 2017, the Nobel Prize winner for medicine is they was awarded for their work in Drosophila actually. So they found out the molecular mechanism that controls our circadian rhythm. It is the things that controls you when to go to sleep and when you wake up, something like that. And they found it in Drosophila in the 80s, I believe, 70s and 80s. So it is a very nice organism to work with, actually, with a long history of in the field of neuroscience.
Maybe we can move first into explaining the one by one the title, such as like ADHD. What I do know from ADHD is that typically people that are diagnosed with ADHD are children, and they could possess impulsive behaviors, so acting without thinking of the consequence or the repercussion. They could also be distracted and daydream a lot and have difficulty in paying attention. Is there more clinical conditions that you maybe know of that you can share?
So ADHD is, it's mostly diagnosed in childhood, but they can persist actually into adulthood. Some people can also, after they turn into an adult, they stop having the symptoms. But also there are people who didn't have it as a child, suddenly have it in the adulthood. So, but mostly it's because you are diagnosed as children, and then it will in some case or half of the case, it will still continue into adulthood. And ADHD stands for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So the characteristic is attention deficit, so lack of focus or even hyperfocusing. This is something that is new. So it's not just they cannot. So the theory is that they cannot shut down the unnecessary information. So that's why they cannot focus on one thing and easily distracted. But because of that, they can be focused. They can put too much energy or too much focus on certain things because they are not able to shut down this kind of. And the other, just as the name suggests, the other part is hyperactivity. In the past, they actually separate these two. You only have ADD and hyperactivity actually, and then at some point they are together, ADHD. I think hyperactivity you can already tell from the name, but because basically apparently I heard that ADHD manifests differently depending on the gender or the sex, basically. So for males, it's more like motoric hyperactivity. So they're like very jumpy or cannot sit still, or like some people, I think, how you call it, like always shaking their legs or shaking usually a lot of school children needs to like muter-muter ball pen, like this kind of things.
Yeah.
Because my class, like half of my classmates are so good at it, I never can learn that. So they always fidgeting. But for girls, is a bit different. Apparently, most of the times, hyperactivity in girls manifests as being chatty.
I see.
So they talk a lot. Yeah.
I see.
So the form is a bit different, and it's not only ADHD. Apparently, for some other psychiatric disorders, it can manifest differently in female and males. So yeah, and you say impulsivity, yes. So ADHD usually is divided into two different subtypes. One is the inattention type. The other one is hyperactivity or impulsivity. So usually they are together. They are tightly linked together. But there are also combined type. So people can actually have only the inability to focus, or only the hyperactivity, or have both, for example. And yeah, there are also a lot of reports that the kids have difficulties to sleep, actually. But yeah, you can imagine that if you are so active, then yeah, fidgety, I think it will be quite difficult for you to sleep.
Yeah, totally. And maybe a little disclaimer, because maybe some people could feel like because they are pretty hyperactive and impulsive, they consider maybe I have ADHD. But then there's also some people that could mislabel themselves and misdiagnose themselves. What do you think of those? Because I think a good diagnosis is important. So people actually need to go to, is it a psychiatrist?
I am not sure, actually. I think in the Netherlands, you cannot directly go to psychiatrists. You first need to go to psychologist, I think. And then the diagnosis can be given by psychologists. But I think in Indonesia, it might be different. But I'm not sure.
I see.
Yeah. So ADHD and also a lot of like most of mental disorders. Well, I actually not sure, but I think at least for ADHD, in the Netherlands they use they call it DSM-5, DSM. So this is a diagnostic statistic manual that is created by doctor associations in the US, and also I think in Indonesia they use the same statistic, the same manual, and then translate it to different languages. And these manuals actually mention that there are several different they have some. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not psychiatrist, so I'm not very familiar with how to diagnose, but they have a guidelines. So there are several points, and then this kids or this individual needs to take at least 5 or 6 of this to be able to be diagnosed as ADHD. But it's also because ADHD it's the extreme of the population. So ADHD is a collection of symptoms, collection of traits, but these traits also actually present in also in general populations. So for people, most people will have at least 0 to 1 symptoms. If you really ask just random people on the street, they will probably mostly score within 0 to 5. So yeah, so in the general population itself, you can actually find still these traits. You can say it like that. And yeah, of course, like some people will always have this, but it's not enough to be diagnosed as ADHD, because also the most important point about mental disorder is that it needs to disrupt your daily life. If you can manage it, because there are a lot of people who are really good at managing their symptoms, you cannot be diagnosed as having ADHD or autism or schizophrenia, because it just doesn't, or even depression, it's also the same. If it doesn't disrupt your daily life, although you check all the lists, take all the box, then you still will not be getting the diagnosis.
Exactly. So I think it's important for people not to like misjudge or think, oh, I am labeled with this because they see that all of the symptoms match them. I think if it did disrupt their daily life, they could go to check to a professional, so they are sure that maybe they do have that condition, right?
Yes. So if you really suspect you have those symptoms, you should go talk to someone, and they know better. And also, and a lot of people go to doctor already have with some kind of diagnosis in mind sometimes, and please don't be disappointed if they actually say something that you did not expect. Basically, like.
But is neurodevelopmental disorder something that you've been always? Is that something you've always been curious about?
Not exactly. I was thrown into this field actually by chance. So I have already my interest was in in neurological disorders in general. Alzheimer's disease, because it's something close to me, because I have a family member that was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. So that's why I thought it's a personal motivation. And then when after I graduated, I worked as a research assistant, and this the PI, so the project leader, just started the collaboration to work on a model of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, in Drosophila. So, and then he asked me to work on this project, and then I started with the project, and then I started to actually go into this neurodevelopmental, neuropsychiatric disorder things with Drosophila, and I think it's fun. It's a bit difficult because psychiatric disorders, because it's a human thing. Basically, psychology is human science, but because it's also very difficult because it is based on human behavior. Well, human behavior is controlled by biology, but sometimes it is not. When they are grouping them together, they didn't group it as with biological basis. So sometimes we as people who are doing this kind of studies is also a bit struggling in that sense, because we are looking at something that is like totally different biologically, but being lumped together. So that's why we never see it. So it's very interesting. It's also our lab is also is one of the labs that actually do psychiatric research in Drosophila. So it's always nice to do it. Feel special, right?
Yeah, totally. And hopefully in the future it could be of use for getting to know more about ADHD, right? But now we've talked about the clinical conditions, like what are the signs and symptoms, but we can move into the molecular biology of ADHD itself. So could you maybe tell me what are the genes that are actually related to ADHD?
Okay, so, the thing is, with a lot of psychiatric disorders, they know that it is heritable because, otherwise, why it is more, if you have family members with psychiatric disorders, why do you actually have a higher chance to have it, right? So it is, there is some genetic basis to it, but actually it's very difficult to pinpoint what it is. And this is also what, I also know some people with, especially ADHD actually, because autism is a little bit more known for genes and so on. They always ask like, what is actually happening inside my brain. I know that it's something happened inside my brain that makes me like this and have the diagnosis of ADHD. And I say that, yeah, we might have a clue, but we don't know yet. That's the thing. So that's why it's important to do this research to know what is happening. And until I started my PhD, we actually don't know much about the genetics of ADHD. Unfortunately, it only until in the mid of my PhD, then it suddenly we have a bit more clue. Like I said, that it's all about correlation. So so a lot of labs in the whole world actually collect genetic samples from a lot of people, and then from this they analyze. They also give some questionnaires. So sometimes, depending on the study design, sometimes they just take the whole population and then rate the how many symptoms you have, and then make a correlation from that, whether like if you have maybe like whether certain genes are more, well, I wouldn't say more prevalent, but it's a genetic variance, not the genes. I mean, everybody has genes, and then the genes all present in everyone. But it's this you can have mutations either in one nucleic acid or in even more inside the genes that actually will change either the expression level of the gene. So it can be, they will be more active, or they will be less active, or even worse, they can change the because afterwards the gene will be later on transcribed and translated into proteins, and then these mutations actually can change the conformation of this protein and make it something that is not supposed to be. So it's So, and this is, of course, not desirable. The study mostly see if there are mutations, because there are different like every single person has their own mutations, and I think 10% of our genome is just random mutations, and it's different from person to person. Even sometimes identical twins, after a while, because of this accumulated mutations, their genome might also not be the same after several years. So they are born the same, but after a while they might actually because the when some changes in their body, and then they might have different, but usually it's not a lot, it's not like suddenly half of your DNA is different. It's not like that. It's not it's quite, so DNA is unique for every person. ADHD is something like this because it's the disorder is one of the most common one actually. Autism is only around 1%, and schizophrenia is also quite low, I believe. OCD is also around 1%. So they think that it is actually from this kind of natural variation, but because they are so mild, the difference is very little, that you really need a lot together to actually give you this like difference, and they have hypothesis, or scientists, geneticists have this hypothesis that maybe this mutations, or like very very little variations, accumulated in certain type of process. So maybe if you are, like for example, you have process from A to C, and then if you only change a little bit, like maybe like 0.1% of A, you will not feel it by the time it reaches C. But if it's 0.1% at A, and then 0.05 B, and then 0.1% again at C, and then so on until C. Then you, at some point, it is quite big. Maybe it totals into 5% or something like that when it reaches the end. So and it makes it makes some difference, and they think that this process is actually the dopaminergic process. I think some people know dopamine is neurotransmitter, and this basically it's what the neurons use to signal each other, and dopamine, I think, is known by layman as one of the pleasure neurotransmitters. Well, apparently through the MRI scanner, basically the scan, it can scan either the activities of the brain or the shape of the brain, like the volume, and also like brain has this foldings. You can see it if you use some type of MRI or the other imaging things, the imaging machines, and they see that there are brain regions for people with ADHD that are smaller or bigger than the general populations. So something is altering, but very mild, because it's really minor, because it's not like you can say, your brain is smaller because you have ADHD. No, it's not like that. It's probably only like 1%, 0.1%. It's really, really neglectable if you like it in a bigger scale, but it's really, really small. But apparently it's this is how far we know up until now. If I say that ADHD, like the difference of the mutations that the mutation makes is small, I think for personality it's even smaller. So it's a bit difficult to identify. And for genes, actually in this book, I said that I studied for not only ADHD but also related neurodevelopmental disorders. So it means that because the topic is ADHD, but in this for my project, the genes that I was studying were not only suggested for ADHD, but also for other disorders like intellectual disability or schizophrenia or autism. So, for example, I always love this gene. The gene is called MEF2C. So so this gene is like mutations in this gene is known to cause intellectual disability with heavy autistic symptoms, actually. And so we found out that it is also related to ADHD. And apparently through my Drosophila data, I found out that they are indeed have they have some role in activity, in and also in maintaining sleep. So the flies, when they don't have they have less of this gene expression, then they have a bit difficulties of sleeping. You should not hyper focus on the things that is not relevant, but would be good if it's something relevant to be able to function well in the society. But also, it is shown that people with ADHD apparently has more creativity compared to normal people. There are a lot of theories about this. I actually, because this is not my research topic, so I'm not sure about it. But this is also one of the. This is her topic that, her research is about discovering the positive traits of ADHD. So It is good. And also in the past, probably this is also something beneficial, because otherwise traits will already be eliminated through like one of the evolutionary theory is that if the traits or certain things is not favorable, then they will die out in the populations. But it's not. So it used to be favorable, and if you think about it, I think only the last centuries or the last 2 centuries, people really need to go to school and sit throughout the day and do nothing, like really sit still in the school. And before that, it was all outside, right? And then that's when ADHD probably starts to become a problem, because those kids suddenly cannot sit still and listen the whole day.
It doesn't fit with the society construct of how schools or society should be, right?
Yes, indeed. So that is one theory. I don't know whether it's a hypothesis that probably it's the change of the society that makes it like our genes or the traits hasn't died out yet, but the society has changed much more rapid than what our biology can do. So something like that. It could be like that. Yeah,
I think those are very interesting theories. I mean, before you mention it, I wouldn't think of that, but then now that I've listened to it, I realize that is a very huge possibility. But now we've talked a lot about ADHD. You also did a research about OCD. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, well, it's been a while, so I hope that I still can remember a lot of things about it. But yeah, OCD stands for obsessive compulsive disorder, right? So basically it's a cycle of being obsessive and being compulsive. So, well, for example, you can have like this obsessive thought of most of the times I think people associate it with being very neat or very clean, for example, but it's not only like that. I think there is a movie about this. I forget about it. It's with Leonardo DiCaprio. Oh, I should have.
I feel like I've seen it before.
Yeah, so he's
a very, very good actor, and he portrayed it really well.
Yeah, I think Leonardo DiCaprio acting of this guy that was I think he's quite rich or something like that he owns his own helicopter or plane, and then while he was piloting his own plane, he crashed, and then because of that he has a trauma in his head. Go ahead. And then suddenly he changed and become like what is displayed in that movie is basically OCD. So he becomes obsessive. Like I think it started with obsession of being clean. So you think that there are germs on my hands, so I start washing my hands. And then after you finish, and then you stop, but after that you still have the same. But no, you're still being very obsessive. You start doing it again and doing it again. So that's why it's a cycle of being obsessive and compulsive. And not only that, not only being extremely extremely meticulous or extremely clean about something, but usually what is make it different with make it distinctive is the ritual. Like they also do it in a certain type of ritual, so you only need to there is a certain sequence to do it. If it's not like that, it should not be like it should only be like that, or I need to do it a certain times, or something like that. And there are a lot of different types of this. So a lot of it, like the only thing that people know is about being clean, but actually that's not the only one about it.
But if you don't mind, maybe we can move on to the social context that in which we're going to talk about neurodivergence, what it is, and what your thoughts are in it. So from what I know is that there is a difference between neurodiversity and also neurodivergence. So neurodiversity is the diversity of variation of cognitive functioning in humans, but neurodivergence is the presence of less typical cognitive variation, such as like autism and ADHD. But from my point of view is that these things are something that we should celebrate. Like Kak Eugenia have mentioned before, that maybe because of our social construct, we believe that some people don't really fit in, but maybe it's because there is a fallacy or some kind of a mistake that we have made, so that only the majority will be able to fit in. But it's also hard to be able to include everyone in one bowl because we know that everyone is different. And how do you see this? Is it even possible to create a social construct that is going to be able to include everyone? They need special attention. And like, for example, during exams, some of my friends have 10 minutes extra so that they can finish the exam because they have either ADHD or dyslexia.
Yeah, indeed. Well, the thing is, so in an ideal situation, yes, you need to accommodate everyone, right? But in reality, maybe it's a bit difficult at this moment. But yeah, it will be very wonderful if one day we can achieve that kind of society, right? And yeah, accommodating is also good. But on the other hand, also, I think at this moment we also know a little bit. We don't know much, right? I mean, I told you that just 4 years ago we did not even have genes. That we don't have that much genes to study for ADHD. Or even for OCD, we at the time there was nothing to be studied on. So we know too little to actually be able to, I wouldn't say treatment, but to accommodate them, We don't even know what they need or what their biology need, because I am biologist, so you need to talk about the biology. Well, psychology is not my thing, so maybe the psychologists can chip in about that. But yeah, biologically, we don't even know what is good thing for them. We already have clue for this and that, but it will be better if we know more about it. So to be able to know like this, so we need to know better about what is happening, and also not only for people. I mean, I say that it's a spectrum, right? So we should not focus on those that is on the extreme, but also somewhere in the middle.
But the reason I actually want to talk and discuss about neurodiversity is because I myself have been judgy before. So a little story time was that I had a friend who admitted that she had ADHD. And at that time, I considered that as a kind of like an excuse to get away from something. So she couldn't really focus in class. And then she said, I have ADHD. And I was like, maybe that's just a claim. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I just want people to not do the same mistake as I did, just to become more aware that it is possible for people to have ADHD, since I've said that it's one of the most common neurodevelopmental disorders, and that we should treat them with kindness as well and not be judgy. And what do you think if we encounter someone that have ADHD or a difference in how we perceive the things that we're doing, how do you think we should act towards those people?
Yeah, so, well, the thing is, I'm not a psychologist, so I really cannot tell you what is the best for you or for them in terms of mental state, right? But then I think, well, of course, like you also have people who, for example, self-diagnose or think that they have this kind of disorder, but apparently they don't. So it is quite normal for people to be skeptical. But of course, you should be able to see the difference, right? If this person is really have ADHD, usually they are different. They are not just, especially if you really are aware about this situation, then it's not just somebody who has because, when I was studying, or even up until now, when there are boring meetings or boring presentations, I will start fidgeting or drawing on my book. But I don't think that's not inattention. That is part of ADHD, So I think a lot of people should see it. Probably at some point you see it, which person is really have the ADHD and not. Maybe sometimes it's a bit more subtle, of course. But as I said, that it needs to be disrupting your daily life. And a lot of people knows how to deal with it, And I think, I won't say deal with it, but how to manage their symptoms. And I think there are quite already some methods or some therapies that are developed to help them manage their symptoms. I think when they works, it works wonderfully. But for example, they say that meditation is good for people with ADHD. But I also think that, of course, if you can meditate, you can control your mind. But the thing is, the problem with people with ADHD, they cannot even control their mind. So, of course, if you can do meditation, then it works wonder. But how to be able to teach them how to meditate, that's also another challenge. But I think that's what we need also as a society, to work together to find out what they can do with this. And everybody is unique. And I think even with normal people, there are two characters that cannot even be together, right? So I think you cannot just make a perfect place for everyone. Sometimes, I won't say fights, but there are some some frictions happen between two individuals. I think that's quite normal, but I think it's more important how to manage it, So I believe that if she already achieved that kind of achievement, then she's very I hope that it's easier for her to find out how to manage her symptoms. I hope so, because we also have, even within people who has that symptoms, there are also people who really cannot function in society. And what can we do with them? It's not like we cannot. If they can function in society, we can help them. But if they need special care, it's not my place to help them, because I think the best is to give them to professionals. Because I can help to accommodate, but also it's not. It's better to give it to professional, because if maybe you ever heard about it, like for example, the spouse of person who has depression usually also will get depression, because they need to take care of the depressed spouse, that they started to also be exhausted as well. So we should not also go too far in that sense. So it's best to give it to the it will be nice for everyone to just be nice to each other. But again, this world, the population is diverse, and it's in the end following a bell curve. And there are people who will be very compassionate, and there will be people who are not compassionate enough. You cannot force it. And one day, even if you teach the people who cannot be compassionate to be more compassionate, the standard will just shift it at some point. Yeah. So I don't think in that sense, it will be good to if people are aware on how to handle things. But yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Now, so for the listeners, we're going to move into the last topic of the day, which is going to be about progress of women in science, which is something that I'm really happy about because I don't know if the listeners or Kak Eugenia is a feminist, but I would consider myself as a feminist. And although I think that I could do more to empower women, but it's always like one step at a time. I'm actually proud of the progress of how women is progressing because I still see a lot of gender inequality, although not right in front of my eyes, but from news, which I think needs a lot of encouragement by women around them that we, as women, can achieve whatever that we actually set our mind to. And becoming a scientist is actually one thing that women should be proud of because they are fully capable of performing the activities and thinking about the research itself. So what are your thoughts upon this?
Okay, so first of all, I might be, my career might not be I'm a woman in a science world, so it is you can say it's a representative of women in science, but you can say that my work environment so far, or even since I was still in high school, my classmates or my colleagues are mostly females, like majority females. Even in high school, I could see that there are more females than males in my classroom. I used to be like in the junior high school, in middle school. At some point, all those the top 5 ranks of like the people who rank the top 5 of every class will be gathered together for the something like that. We will be gathered together, and then usually in that group, there are mostly only females. We hardly have males in that group. So I have this kind of experience, and even in my research group, I did 2 interns. Well, the first internship was still quite equal, but second internship is female dominated. I went to 3 labs in Radboud, and then all 3 are like female dominated actually. So I would say that it's not like woman is not represented in science. It's just like you need to consider that it's not until mid 20th centuries that women are allowed to have education, right? Or secondary education in general. So I think you need to say that we as women is a bit behind in that sense, and the wave of people, the wave of women in science is coming right now, of course, because the people who are now a professor or like the CEO, CEO maybe it's different, but like the top of the top of the research is mostly males, of course, because they are people who were born in the 50s or 40s even. So they are the generation that maybe the first time women are allowed to go to the university. So it is coming, and it is already. They say that nowadays there are more. One say that there are more females than males in secondary education, but females are known there are higher rates of female finishing studies than males. So, you can say that, at some point, we will have enough representation. So I think, of course, that it is still, we still need to make the change, of course, because to make science more accommodating to females. But I also see that there are some policies that try to do this in a not a very, they don't do it properly, basically. They just say that, okay, there needs to be certain percentage of females than males in the in the board, and then if you only have one female, if you have only one female professors, and then you need to have equal amount of females and males, where are you going to find the rest of the professors, right? The female professors. Then you started to say, okay, then I just need some names to make sure that I have enough female representative in the board, and they're just there for names only somehow. So I think it's nice for them to do that, but at the same time, like, why would you do this? I think it's more important because I think the difference between male and female is especially the reproductive system, and I think that's really where things needs to be equalized between male and female. For example, in Sweden, they give maternity leave. Not maternity leave, but parental leave for both male. It doesn't matter whether you are male or female. If you are new parents or you just have a baby, then you can get a parental leave. And it doesn't matter. You can use it together as mother and father, or you can choose only one can stay at home, can be the father, can be the mother, and the other go back to work, and so on. But they mandate at least several months for the young mother, I think, for the mother, because of course you cannot recover that fast. Your body won't recover that fast. But otherwise, it's up to you how to use your parental leave. And unfortunately, not every country has this, and even some countries don't even have what this called. Well, they do have the maternal or maternity leave, but it's not like they do it. Like they rather fire you and then instead of giving you maternity leave.
Especially in the Netherlands, I've never encountered any kind of gender difference, at least right in front of my eyes, which I'm very, very grateful of. But thank you for sharing your thoughts upon this, the women in science, also about ADHD and OCD and the social context such as like neurodiversity and neurodivergence. I'm grateful that you are actually willing to share with us. I was always excited to talk and have this talk with you. And is there anything you want to maybe conclude from our talk today?
Yeah. So I think there are still a lot of misconceptions among people, and also, I think I don't blame them, because even the misconceptions also occur within this researcher, especially about mental health. It feels like everybody is just fighting against each other. Like especially like, for example, with ADHD, it's because it's a children. The diagnosis is usually done on children, so parents is also involved here. So it's like what the parents want, what the school wants, what the people with ADHD want, what the researcher wants or see about the problems, and even within the researcher, you have like what the psychologists think about it, what the psychiatrists think, what the biologists think, what the geneticists think. So it's like, people are not in the same board, for example. So I think that's that's a pity. I don't know how we can actually do this. I think it would be nice if every parties can talk to each other. It will be nice if that happened like that, and hopefully understand.
That is something to note in the future. I think people should gather together to talk about their views and find something out of it, right? Well, I'm hopeful. Hopefully that will be anytime soon. I would love to see that as well. And thank you so much for coming to this talk. I'm glad. And maybe we can see each other in the future in real life.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, inviting me for this interview. It sounds like you are very dedicated towards this topic.
Amen. And then we can see each other and talk about so many things. Yay!